Welcome to Towel Capes. I'm Cody Nestor. He's Todd Hill.
What's up, guys?
And today we're here talking about Salem's Lot 2024. Those words, Todd, when you put that behind a film that was a remake, not good.
Kinda, yeah.
Not good. Todd, what did you think the story was?
So a vampire is taking up residence in this sleepy little town. There's no possibility at all it could be anything else. Cause it can't be. Because we know it right from the start. It's up to this ragtag team of townsfolk to try to stop the bloodsucker from converting the whole town into vampires.
Start us off here, Todd. I'm interested to see what you think. What did you make of? What did you think of Salem's Lot?
So I think I need to go ahead and throw this out there at the first. I have never read the book. Anything we usually cover, unless it's a comic book.
We're not reading.
I've never read the book.
Unless it's a graphic novel,
right?
Maybe a manga, an actual book with no pictures.
And I've actually never watched the original Salem's Lot.
I have. It's just been such a long time. I remember nothing about it. I haven't obviously read the book either.
So a thing for me, and it's something that hopefully I won't keep coming back to ad nauseum, but this movie just moved at too brisk of a fucking pace for its own good.
Yeah.
At the sacrifice of, I think, characterization, maybe plot points, anything suspenseful or possibly interesting in a way. I mean, there's some good things here, but
right.
it's like I compare it to, like, this is the Cliff Notes version of Salem's Lot.
Yeah. I feel like, again, even not even reading the book, I feel like that's an apt kind of depiction.
Yeah.
Obviously based on the Stephen King book of the same name. If you know Stephen King, this is another, you know what this is. This is another Stephen King insert character. Ben Mears, he's another Stephen King insert character. You know, you're from the Northeast, in this instance, Maine, and you're a writer. That's most Stephen King's work.
Right.
That's most of what you get here.
Yeah.
I was not a fan of this remake. Again, it's been such a long time since I've seen the original, so I'm just really mostly going on this. Can't compare it to the book. Can't really compare it to the original. Just this solely. Not a fan. First question off about it directly. Is this intentionally campy and tongue-in-cheek, or is it just fucking bad? I can't tell. Right. Sometimes.
There's some things that kind of, as you watch it, you kind of leaning towards it maybe being a little camp, maybe a little tongue-in-cheek. But again, it's just, I just think they didn't give themselves enough time to breathe. I mean, the runtime is not that bad. It's not that terrible.
Under 2 hours.
I think if you're pushing over 2 with something like this, I mean, I looked at the original runtime for the original Salem's Lot. It was like 3 and change. So, yikes.
Yeah, and we'll talk about maybe the original runtime on this. But yeah, I think there's definitely some stuff that's meant to be tongue in cheek. I don't think the intention behind this was to play this straight.
It's very, it's popped to me, it's very tropey.
Yeah.
Very tropey.
It's very tropey. Not, and that's just aside from its pacing issue. Yeah. It's very tropey. It feels camp. It feels like we're not necessarily not taking it seriously, but we're not trying to be, this is not like a very scary, horror-driven vampire film. Right. This is meant to be kind of campy, maybe a little pulpy, like you say, tongue-in-cheek at times. But it rides that final line to where it can easily fall into, was that tongue-in-cheek or was that just bad?
Just bad, right.
Yeah, and that's a big problem I had with it, other than some of the stuff that we'll talk about that might be related to what caused the pacing issues and things like that. A few characters that we got here. You want to kind of take us through some of the characters and what they have going on here, Ton?
So, if you mentioned before, we have Ben Mears. He's our insert Stephen King character here. He's like the writer. He's come back to his old hometown.
Lewis Pullman, I think his name, son of Bill Pullman. Okay. I'm going to refer to him as son of Pullman.
Son of Pullman.
Yeah.
We've got Susan Norton. She's immediately set up as like going to be his love interest, and I mean that's just fast track the fuck.
Yeah, she's literally, there's a scene where they're in the library and he's like researching what he has a tragic backstory. He's originally from Salem's Lot, Jerusalem's Lot. He's originally from there. His parents were killed in some kind of car accident. He's there to research more about himself and about his lineage and about his family. He's just there in the library chilling. She notices he's there and she's like, "Oh, I'm going to be at the drive-in tonight. I'd like to get fucked in my car tonight by a writer. Like,
Right?
she's just, and it's like, oh my God. Like, there's forced romances in movies,
Yeah.
but this might be the most ham-fisted
It's like
I've
from the
seen.
first time you see her in that
Yeah.
real estate office,
Yeah.
she's like, well, there's his love interest, obviously.
Yeah, I'd like for someone to go down on me tonight at the
At
drive-in.
the drive-in.
Yeah, okay, that's Susan.
We got Matthew Burke. He's like our kind of a know-it-all school teacher guy.
Pipe smoking school teacher,
Right,
know-it-all, loves the Red Sox.
We got Dr.
Hate him already.
We got Dr. Cody. She's kind of our doctor of the town. She's kind of the one that's at first hesitant to kind of get on board with the vampire train. But boy, it don't take her long.
Yeah, we'll talk
like
about her.
everybody else in the movie, it don't take her long to get on the vampire train.
You're right about that.
Mark Petrie, he's our young African-American boy.
Best character.
Best character in the film,
Best
yeah.
character.
He's amazing. And Straker, he's kind of like the vampire's familiar, kind of his Renfield servant.
Yeah, Renfield. That's a good term for it. Yeah, played by, I forget his name, maybe Euron Greyjoy from Game of Thrones.
God bless you.
People will know him from Game of Thrones that have watched that show. I'll throw these kind of mentions into your two character-wise. I thought this at first, and I researched it. I thought at first, I'm like, hey, there's Homelander's kid before he had his growth spurt. Because there's Ralph and there's his brother, and Ralph gets abducted and sacrificed early on, and there's the other kind of kid there.
That was Homelander's kid?
Well, I was like, that's Homelander's kid, but I was researching it. That's actually Homelander's kid's twin brother.
Oh.
So apparently, Cameron Crovetti is Ryan in The Boys, and this is his twin brother, Nicholas Crovetti.
Shit,
So I was like, okay, all right, did that some research. We also get the bad guy from Die Hard 2 as the sheriff.
Yeah.
William Sadler as the sheriff here.
Not a very good sheriff at all.
No, shit, sheriff. And another person I noticed that was like, hey, it took me forever. I'm like, I had to IMDb it. I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? The kid, well, not a kid, but he's grown up in this, but he is the guy that works in the cemetery. I was like, where have I seen that dude's face? He is the kid all grown up from Gladiator.
Oh, okay.
He's like the whatever that was sister of Joaquin Phoenix, her little boy. I was like, I've seen his face somewhere.
That was one that was digging that one boy's grave.
Yeah,
Okay.
Spencer Treat Clark
Gotcha.
is his name.
Okay.
And just some notables I found there I kind of wanted to mention, Todd. This is a vampire movie, I guess. I guess you could call it that. What sort of vampires are we dealing with here? What powers, what weaknesses we got going on?
They seem to have most of your common garden variety type vampires. They can hypnotize or mind control you in a way. They have to be invited. You have to invite them into your home. They can't just come in.
Yeah.
Weaknesses, we've got the holy water, garlic, crucifixes,
stakes,
yes,
apparently white roses,
tongue depressors taped together in the shape of a cross,
white roses, it's
right,
mentioned
white
at one
roses.
Point. What do you think of the look of the normal vampires here compared to the big bad here is Barlow? You probably, if you've never seen Salem's Lot, you probably have still seen that depiction of vampire. It's basically kind of the Nosferatu version of a vampire. What do you think of the look of Barlow, but then compare that to the way the normal vampires look?
I don't mind Barlow. Like you say, it's kind of that wink and a nod to the old Nosferatu look, and I can take that as opposed to just your good looking dapper vampire.
Yeah.
No
Right.
offense to anybody that's ever played that part, but
Yeah.
for me, I think one of the, I don't know if you can call it the strong suit, but I really like just your average townsfolk vampires. I really liked how their eyes were always seeming to be glowing.
Right.
That was just one thing that kind of struck me as cool. There's that one part where they're riding by, I think it was the school teacher's house, and they were going to go in, and he's like, we can't stop. There's vampires up on the roof. And you just see them up there just like lurking with those eyes beaming out. Pretty cool visual.
The film, for credit I will give it, it sets a pretty good mood when it does that stuff. Now, some of it is a little cheesy, and sometimes we're relying on a little too many kid actors in this sometimes.
Yeah.
Those kind of things. But the film, it's a good looking film.
Yeah.
The cinematography is good, and it does have a good that upper northeastern Maine, misty, foggy kind of vibe to it at times. It sets a pretty decent atmosphere. So I will give it that.
Yep.
Another problem I have is this film needs to learn how to show and not fucking tell.
Right.
Because
too much exposition.
characters over-explain things that just don't need an explanation.
Right.
There's a part where Straker, the familiar, the servant of Barlow, he abducts Ralph, this little boy in the woods, and he's like dragging him into Barlow's house, and he's like, I'm bringing you this little child to my master, who is Barlow, who we are going to sacrifice to make Barlow stronger, and we're going to make more vampires, and we're going to save the town.
You didn't need all that.
Yeah, and I'm like,
drag him up there and let him bite him. You know why he's bringing him up there.
Yeah, I was like, why can't we just have a little creepy scene where he drags him into a house, no one says nothing, and this fucking weird Nosferatu vampire kills this little kid?
Yeah.
And maybe get a genuine kind of creep out moment or a scary moment.
Jump scare moment.
But you have to like, oh,
you talked it to death.
It's like everybody over explains the fuck out of everything at every point in this film. We mentioned pacing, and I read that the original cut of this film was supposed to be 3 hours, 3 hours plus, and it's been cut down to like 156. So you figure that's like, I think it's 156, 150 something. You figure that's about 10 minutes of credits. So you're talking 140 something. So from 3 hours, and you can definitely tell that scenes have been chopped out.
Yeah.
And the one here, and I don't know if I'm right, but the best example here. So there's a part where they go back to Matt, the know-it-all school teacher's house.
Okay.
And he already instantly knows everything there is to know about vampires.
I know,
how to kill them, what they're all about. He knows that it's vampires just like that.
As soon as that body's in his bed and he sees those two little marks, it's like, well, it couldn't have been a wolf, couldn't have been a dog.
Couldn't have scratched himself.
Y'all get over here with every cross and crucifix you got. I know what this is.
Exactly. Exactly. And he's the one that mentions about the white roses. Apparently, he calls a flower shop, and some well-dressed man bought all the white roses, which that was like, I guess, Straker or whatever. And Son of Pullman is immediately like, Straker. And I'm like, you don't know Straker.
He hadn't even met the guy.
You've never laid eyes on him that I can remember in this film.
Straker.
You've never seen him.
Like he's his old arch enemy or something.
Exactly. Matt is like, hey, I was like, here's all the weaknesses. And someone called the flower shop today and bought all the roses that we need. And Son of Pullman is like, Straker. You've never seen him. You haven't laid eyes on him.
Right.
You shared no scene. I don't think Matt knew Straker.
Yeah.
Because he's also like, I bet Ralph, the first boy, Matt's like, I bet Ralph, the first boy, was a sacrifice for Barlow. You don't even know Barlow. There's a store in town, but they've never interacted with any of these people. There's no way to know any of this stuff. And I feel like there was a scene there where
something got cut.
Where someone told Ben Mears about Straker, or maybe they were telling him, or like
he
kind
bumped
of
into him in
surveilling
town
him, or there was a scene somebody's like, hey, maybe you think it's the weird fucking Eastern European looking dude in town that fits in. It doesn't fit in with anybody in town. That's wearing suits. That's running this weird store with some kind of like figurehead that's never in the shop. And it's like just some scene introduced, but he's like immediately like, oh, this well-dressed man. And he's like, Straker. You've never met him. And I couldn't get over that. I backed it up and I'm like, wait a minute. I was like, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. I don't think that he saw him, knew about him, ever laid eyes on him at all in this film. And they just immediately know who it is, who's behind it, exactly how that little boy was used. Not that he was made into another vampire that you just hadn't seen yet. No, he was sacrificed, definitely. And it's all too convenient. And I definitely think it's because it's because that shit was chopped out of this film.
Right.
It went from 3 hours to 2, and they're just like, hey, well, we as the audience know who Straker is, so Son of Pullman knows who he is. We'll cut out the 3 scenes they had together, or all the information that he has to do that. Because Matt's like, he must do Barlow's bidding during the day, like, and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, that's a hell of a guess, Matt. That's a hell of a guess you got going on. You're a real smart teacher. And it really gets on my nerves. And the second big thing that gets on my nerves is, stop doing shit 30 minutes before sunset. Stop.
It's like, well, it's about 45 minutes to dark. Let's get started.
Hey, everybody get your shit together. Get your crosses, your steaks, your holy water, your garlic, your white roses. Let's all meet at 6:45 p.m. Give me a fucking break.
Let's don't start at like 12:30.
Yeah, that's the only way this movie can build tension is by having people to like do stuff right at the edge of sunset when they're dealing with, and they already know because they're all smart as fuck and like they're like college theses on vampires.
Right.
They understand them so well, and yet they do everything at the edge of sunset in the film because that's the only way this film can build dramatic stakes and tension. And it's fucking stupid, Todd. I think I already know the answer to this, but I mean, this film moves at such a rushed pace and such a breakneck speed. Did you have time to connect with any characters? Did anybody stand out to you?
I mean, the little black kid, I forget his name already. Mark. I mean, that's the best character in this thing, I think.
Yeah, his stuff kind of gives me a little bit of Frog Brothers from Lost Boys vibe.
Right.
You know, they're kind of like into the occult and into those kind of things. Comic book readers know about the subject basically just from like media and pop culture. Yeah. It gives me a little bit of those vibes, but he's definitely the best character because I'm like, he's not your typical like bullied weakling because like there's a part where they're like, they're talking about he stood up to a bully and he's like, yeah, and like I'm not gonna run away if he does it again, I'm gonna like beat his ass or whatever. And like he's not your typical kind of like nerdy character you'd see in this. Where it's like, oh geez, vampires, you know, that kind of stuff that he could have turned into Steve Urkel with a stake.
And when he figures it out by reading comics, I might add.
Yeah, exactly.
He's not like, well, where's the nearest adult? He's like, well, I'm gonna sharpen me up some stakes and
he
go
does
kill
a lot of shit on
I'm
his
gonna
own.
Go kill that motherfucker.
He's like, I'm gonna go kill Barlow on my own. He goes to his house on his own. Like he's a badass little kid. Like that's really the only good parts of this is that this little kid has such agency and works so independently on his own and is such a little badass.
Ain't no grown up gonna do shit.
Yeah, exactly. I guess it's up to me. Here I go killing again. And like it just like gets up. Like I don't know. Like I thought that definitely worked in a film lacking a lot of characters and characterizations. What we get of Mark was fun. The funnest parts of the movie. Dr. Cody, she's our other African-American lady character here. She, I think, is meant to be a funny character, I think. Comedy misfires there for me. She gets kind of thrown into the stereotypical, oh, hell no, black lady role in this film. And it's just, again, like, we're still doing this in 2024. Because she has a lot of those moments where it's like, you know, the first time she really sees a vampire and like the dead body wakes up, she's like, oh, hell no. And like all this kind of stuff. And it's just that stereotypical, like.
We're still going there.
Yeah, we're still going there. Because there's a line where like they're in the church and he's, son of Pullman is like, hey, what did the sheriff do? And he's like, what about the sheriff? And the sheriff smashes through the windows and she's like, he wasn't much help. And I'm like, I roll. Like, yeah, exactly. Just comedy misfires all around. Besides Mark, though, here's some things I wrote down that I did like. Before we move on to the reviews, here's a few things that I liked. The shot with Son of Pullman in the street where all the vampires are up on the roof. And it's all foggy.
Pretty cool.
Good shot.
Good shot.
Nice shot. Good trailer shot. It was in the trailer. Good trailer shot. Susan, our horny love interest, her mom randomly, again, had to be chopped out of this. Her mom randomly, without never seeing Barlow or Straker that I remember, agrees to be Barlow's new servant, new familiar.
Something was missing.
Off screen, she just comes in and like, oh, I met a great man and I'm his servant. He's a vampire. Like that kind of stuff. Huh, Mom? What now?
What?
I'm too busy wanting to get fucked at the drive-in tonight to hear what you're saying, Mom. Like that. It gets on my fucking nerves. But she comes in and she's like the new familiar. And her character is like whatever, but I don't like that she's the familiar. What I do like about that, why I mention it, is because I like that she randomly blows a hole through Dr. Cody's chest with a shotgun.
Yes.
I didn't expect that. That was one little shock I got as she's like going to stake Susan, horny love interest, ends up getting turned into a vampire, and she's going to stake her in her makeshift kind of coffin, and she gets some buckshot or something through the back from Susan's mom. I like the idea. There's the drive-in is mentioned before. Obviously, they go there early on in the film. I like the idea of the cars as coffins at the drive-in.
Yep, I love the drive-in setting and that coffin idea.
But again, I feel like more could have been done with that setting. You could have done some fun stuff, like vampires chasing them through the little like concession stand, and like buckets of popcorn flying, and like just do some more with that setting. You know, everything's rushed. We got to go. We got to chop some shit out of this, and like you could have done a lot more with that drive-in setting that would have been really cool. Had to have a classic movie that everybody knows playing.
Yeah.
Something like that. And the last thing that I wrote here, and it goes back to the drive-in. Kind of Mark, our kid character. He ends up getting in the car. He ends up bringing down the drive-in screen to kind of let the sun show through on the majority of all the vampires. Ends up taking that drive-in screen down, and he ends up running over Susan's mom with the car.
Right.
I like those things. Another didn't like for me though, Barlow, big bad Nosferatu vampire. He dies like any normal vampire. Gets a stake in the mouth, and then Son of Pullman hits him with another stake in the chest.
That's it.
And that's it.
That's it.
He didn't feel threatening. He's kind of barely in it.
He's hardly in it, actually.
I mean, you see him a little bit at the very beginning with Ralph. You see him kill the preacher or the priest and Mark's parents in a kitchen scene, and he kind of shows up at the end. That's about it. He's in about 3, 4, 5 scenes. He's maybe got 10 minutes of screen time. If that, I would expect.
He's like the Beetlejuice of this movie.
Yeah, I guess so. And I mean, it's not like he had any sort of character anyway that had anything to bring and offer, but you would think you would give him some kind of cool scenes, some cool powers, some cool kills, something like that. You get none of that.
Nothing.
You get none of that, Todd. All right, Todd, let's review this sumbitch.
Okay.
Todd, give us your review score and final thoughts for Salem Slot 2024.
So, as to refer back to my original statement, without having read the original source material or the original movie, I'm going to try to be somewhat in the middle here. But this being my first delve into anything Salem's Lot, as I stated before, this movie was just way too rushed. At the expense of plot points, character development, any kind of really other than the little kid, any kind of likable characters, I would say, honestly. I think if you're looking for something to kind of put on your Halloween playlist, I think you can do a hell of a lot worse. But I think in the end, I'm going to have to go with a 5 here. I think it's just kind of mediocre.
Gotcha. I'm close to your score. Pro list, Mark, the little black kid. Lewis Pullman, sure. Not sure he's leading man material. I'm pretty sure he was in a show. He was on a show called Amazon with Josh Brolin. I can't remember what it's called. Outer Range. And some stuff I've watched him in recently. Pretty competent. I don't think he's necessarily leading man material. Right. It's a competently made film. Again, the cinematography's fine. The music was serviceable. It's got a decent atmosphere and some of the stuff which you kind of hoped it would lean into, because I thought this was kind of going to be a serious kind of take on it. From the kind of online stuff I've been reading, this like a lot of Stephen King stuff, most people think this is more suited for like a television adaptation, multiple episodes, 6 episodes, 8 episodes, really kind of flesh it out. Let us know about the characters. From what I understand of the Salem's Lot book, it's a lot of character development first, and then shit happens kind of towards the end.
Okay.
It's more about the characters and then what happens to them towards the end. And I think the pacing is a pro because it goes fast and you're never really super bored.
True.
But it's also a negative of it too, because things can't breathe.
There ain't a lot of meat on the bone.
Yeah, it moves so quickly that plot elements aren't explained. Some scenes don't get time to breathe, and but there's not enough good there to want me to see a longer cut of it. That's the problem too.
Right.
Almost everything else is a con. It's not scary. It's not fun. It's not funny. It can't decide on a tone. There's no inventive kills. There's no really creative kills. And, too much exposition. Everybody over-explains things. And characters don't act like real people.
Yeah.
It don't act like real people in the situation. And, I think maybe that goes to part of its campiness. All in all things considered, I'm giving it a 4. I think it's subpar.
Okay.
I feel like 5, right in the middle, mediocre. I feel like this is a little worse than mediocre.
Okay.
I feel like it's a pretty subpar outing. Again, like you said, it's not the worst thing you could ever watch on Halloween for a spooky movie marathon, but God, there's a lot more on that list before you would get to this Salem's Lot.
Right.
I think universally, the original, the 1979, is kind of looked at pretty fondly. So put that on your list. Put this way
back.
Way on down.
Way on down.
So it's a 4 from me and it's a 5 from Todd.
Okay.
Anything else, Seal?
We're wrapping it up. We're done.
We're done. That's it for this episode. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. Feel free to send us an email or get in touch with us on social media. Towel Capes will return. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time. Bye, guys.
Later, guys.